And welcome back to the Global Speedrun 70-Star League Division 2 Bonanza. We are here in the final match of the day. Bringing back the pace a little bit. We're about to get into some extremely exciting Mario action. So I thought I would be a little more soothing, talk a little bit about these two players. Of course, we have Saksdal versus Gainai, a little bit lower down on the standings. Now, the interesting thing about this race, it is the only part of this race, it's the only race of the day, specifically speaking, where the loser could actually still be ahead. If Gainai loses this race by less than 10 seconds, he will still be ahead of Saksdal when the race is done. So it's a very interesting dynamic here, where all Gainai needs to do is finish within 10 seconds of his opponent. Very, very interesting aspect to that. We do have one more race still to go. That is JMO versus Cartoon, but we are underway with the gameplay. But yes, so the standings for this week are almost set. This is the penultimate match. Another USA versus Germany showdown. Two countries that are dominating the league, especially in Division 2. But yeah. So JMO versus Cartoon, just a quick update on that, by the way. This is the last match of the night, as I said before. But we will be having JMO versus Cartoon next week to make up for. Unfortunately, there were some scheduling issues and we couldn't fit them in this week. We're going to get them next week. And that will round out this week's Division 2. Looks like Gainai both players making their Lucky 2 skip. Gainai opting for the Japanese version. Very interesting. Not a huge deal, extremely minor time save. And we're going to be seeing a bomb clip come out from both players. And here we observe Bob-omb Battlefield, which is a heavily ecological, extremely green area. We see a little industrialization. These rocks have been a bit shaped in order to very carbon footprint neutral. Meanwhile, Gainai going to be traversing through the castle, followed by Saksdal, both of these players going for Womps 9. And they're going to be entering into a slightly more industrialized world that is Princess Peach's secret slide. Don't see much life around here, mostly just a glorified storage unit for stars. Stars, of course, are not people, but rather sources of power. And I'm thinking a 12.7 from Gainai and a 12.6 from Saksdal. 12.7 comes out from Gainai, and a 12.7 from Saksdal. Very interesting. Not sure why they put a storage unit at the bottom of a really long ramp, but they did put barriers on the ramp, so it's not quite so dangerous as it may seem. And now we're headed into Womp's Fortress. Definitely, if we're talking about industrialization versus nature, there's a very beautiful greenery on the surrounding areas, but the further in you get, the more construction you clearly see. Definitely has been designed to cater toward the denizens, and Gainai actually missing the run up to Cannonless. So going to be giving us a tour of the outskirts. We see that beautifully paved rock as Saksdal bumps against the brick and picks up that star. Beautiful, just gorgeously laying brick. Just fantastic architectural work. Unfortunately, if they were trying to hide the star, just a slight gimp in that they left a little slit to grab the star, of course, which gravitates toward the person next to it. Gainai going to do another setup for Cannonless, and Saksdal going to be going for Owless. Now, a very interesting choice on the part of the architect of Womp's Fortress was to create a cage to store that star in. Of course, not very accessible. If their objective was to make it accessible, they clearly failed on every level. Or if it was to keep it out of reach and make it hard to steal, unfortunately, did not foresee a borderline flying plumber or an owl that would allow you to access it. Saksdal here going for what looks like Pro Cycle. And Gainai picking up the Alice, and Saksdal getting into the Wild Blue. Oh man, that is highly unfortunate. I'm not sure which cycle he was going for. If he was going for intermediate cycle, that is the least amount of time you can lose. Looks like he did go for intermediate cycle, so that is about as good a deal as you can get. And just traversing once again, I think that these runners have shown us quite a bit of this area, and both of them failing this particular double jump. This is a deceptively difficult jump to make. And it looks like both players going for the half cycle in addition to that, and Saksdal even beyond that a little bit. And now we're seeing an almost perfect sync. We could be seeing a sync real soon, folks. And also intriguing is that the islands are shaped in such a way that the arrows are meant to guide you in a specific direction. But Mario choosing to defy such decisions, kind of asserting his own autonomy, and we are seeing a near sync here. Looks like Saksdal slightly faster rollout out of the 100-coin star. Gonna grab a tiny bit of a lead. But don't worry, we've got plenty of Womp's Fortress coming up. Now, we've seen the outside of the island. We've kind of seen them slowly circle their way in, especially going for that 100-coin star. But we haven't seen much from the top of the fortress. Now, for a fortress, you'd expect to see the castle in the painting, but you're not going to see that quite yet. It is clearly under construction at the current moment. The leader of the construction is currently on strike, and it is our job to kind of pummel him back into work. And that is what's going on right now, is... Indeed, Mario is dealing with slight union issues, but has managed to resolve the dispute, and construction on the fortress will continue as planned. Gainai re-entering a little bit ahead of Saksdal, so we're going to be seeing on his screen exactly what the product of their work is. A little bit disappointing that the architects have not put in a better way to get to actually get to the top of the fortress than having to climb a tree and jump from it. Seems a little bit of a safety hazard. Saksdal having a couple troubles getting up to the top, and that's going to allow Gainai to take a significant lead. But here you see that interesting castle keep, barely big enough to fit a single person of Mario's stature, and Mario not exactly the biggest person who has existed. So perhaps wants to expand that castle keep a little, create a little bit more space so as not to allow claustrophobia to take over any inhabitants. But we're going to see Gainai enter into the slide again. I'm going to predict a 12.8 time here. Get snagged up a little. And a 12.9 actually from Gainai. Very, very interesting. And a 12.7 for Saksdal maybe? No, a 12.8. So definitely Commentator having a little bit of difficulty predicting those times, but we're going to breeze right past that. Not all that important. Gainai gets some beautiful lag reduction, and he's going to be headed here into Tower of the Wing Cap. Now, there's not much to talk about with the Tower of the Wing Cap. People aren't really meant to be out here, but of course, Mario has had a swig of Red Bull, and now has grown wings upon his cap. Of course, by pressing that switch, that switch, of course, activates a Red Bull sponsorship, actually. So he's going to press that button, and he's going to be able to get wings at various points in the middle of the run where vending machines are available. And Saksdal goes a little far down on that switch, but picks it up. I'm kind of going to be entering here into Bowser in the Dark World, an interesting decision from him that entails a lot of complex routing decisions, such as wanting to go anywhere but the lobby. And Gainai headed here. We're going to see what kind of cycle he's going to get. Interesting starting movement. Looks like he's going to be going for a Shigeru cycle. Saxdal with a hard stop. Ooh, pushes up a little there. Looks like Shig is the best he can hope for as well. Indeed, Gainai barely makes that Shiguru cycle. Oh, and Saxdal gonna have to opt for that normal cycle. Now, if we're talking about architecture, logistically speaking, this is a safety nightmare. Quite frankly, if Bowser is going to deal with any kind of OSHA issues or the Department of Labor, he's going to have a legal nightmare on his hands because there are so many safety hazards here, so many different openings for litigation. But of course, Bowser probably has disassembled the justice system at this point. He is a military leader overseeing a turtle junta. So chances are he doesn't really have a judicial branch to deal with, which does mean that he probably doesn't anticipate worrying about such issues. Gainai missing a Bowser throw here, and that is going to lead to significant multi-second time loss. And Saxdal is going to save a little time over his opponent. Gainai doing a couple backflips. Now, of course, Gainai knows that Mario works for Peach, who is a benevolent monarch, will reinstate the judicial system, so Gainai knows that the backflips, if he happens to pull his back or overstretch his shoulders, that he will have the full resources of the workplace worker protection programs at work, and will also have access to adequate healthcare from Dr. Toad. And Dr. Mario as well, who will soon be returning from his travels. Saxdal going here for the island hop, Gainai getting it nice and clean. And Saxdal getting it nice and clean as well, and these two are within a stone's throw of each other. Now we're going to head into Cool Mountain, and I don't know if you've ever been to a ski lodge, but the minimalism of industry and nature very much creates a beautiful contrast of how harmoniously humans can live even in the worst of conditions. And it is a similar dynamic we're going to be seeing. We'll be going into the ski lodge later on, but Gainai here are going to do some stunt work akin to Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 2, opting to do all of his own stunts, no cables. And if he does fall off the mountain, that's going to be a death for him. And we've seen a lot of wall kicks will work deaths, fortunately neither from either of these players. And now we're going to be going into the lodge. Now, the ski lodge was meant to be a bit of a refuge, and built a little bit into the mountain, a very interesting architectural decision. But what they didn't anticipate was that when they started building the lodge and went into the mountain, they found a giant gaping abyss, which is not what you tend to find in the middle of the mountain. And I think they discovered that the mountain is actually a volcano. Of course, the volcano is frozen up, there's no lava because of the climate, but what they wound up having to do was they had to deal with the abyss, and the best way they decided to deal with it was to create a new course for skiing, an indoor ski course where you would ski, and if you fell off the edge, you would fall to your death. Gainai going to be rescuing a penguin. Did get an Amber Alert about that penguin and decides to do a little bit of goodwill. Saxdal doing his novel 100-coin movement here for CCM 17, so we're going to be opting for that double pillarless. Did not plan to really dig his heels into the snow, but digging your heels in, certainly not the worst decision. Now Saxdal entering here into the big penguin race. For some reason, Commentator decided that he was going to say CCM 17, and obviously slip-sliding away was already done. So Saxdal is doing CCM 18, he's just doing the little penguin lost afterward, which, as we've covered earlier, and Saxdal doing his cute shortcut strategy. Now, most shortcuts, the designers of the house decided not to make shortcuts possible in the big penguin race, but what they overlooked was that superhuman jump that they figured no human person would ever be able to make. So that was not technically covered in the rules. So if you actually go into the legal precedent for the law, that there were court rulings that little hops over the corners were going to be completely valid. But because of that, they specifically covered which jumps were illegal, which shortcuts were illegal in this race, but they didn't cover which shortcuts were legal. So as a result of that, there were loopholes that allowed players to take big shortcuts that weren't thought possible. That's what saksdal is doing right here. Really taking advantage of the Mushroom Kingdom legal system here, such that it is. And saksdal actually getting a bit of a save and quit. Now this is an interesting strategy that is considered to be a daring gambit because it loses you a lot of time and gains you absolutely nothing in return. But fortunately, saksdal going to find his way right back into Cool Mountain. Very clear, concise architecture in the lobby. Very, very easy to find your way back into Cool Mountain. Now, Gainai going to be heading into Big Boo's haunt. Does have a bit of an advantage in that he didn't close and restart the game for no reason. And that's going to give him a bit of an edge over saksdal. Any chance that we had at a synchronization is going to require a monumental mistake from Gainai. But saksdal finishing up here in CCM, rescuing that baby penguin last. That baby penguin, not a very popular character among players of Mario 64. Now, Big Boo's haunt is a very interesting level because you see a lot of bookcases, very erudite architects who clearly had a great love of reading. But what you will notice is that Boos don't have opposable thumbs or even arms that can reach past their bodies. So the real question is, who exactly lives in Big Boo's haunt to make use of all of these books and this exciting nonfiction? It's probably a lot of unread texts. A lot of unread literature that, who knows, could give great enriching intellectual value, but unfortunately the denizens of the house are not capable of capitalizing. Gainai going to be going into the mysteries of the secret bookcase, or whatever the heck that star is called, and both of them getting very clean Big Boo stars. And the secret bookcase star really, as we're going to see, honestly, and I'll get to it in a moment, but saksdal going to be entering back in here into Big Boo's haunt. All that said, Big Boo's haunt is a monument to how efficient and beautiful, like, good architecture can be, managing to fit an entire mansion inside that tiny little. But Gainai going to be heading here into Shifting Sand Land, going to be making his attempt at the Pillarless Star. Secret of the Haunted books, of course, not using the books at all in the house. And that's a good metaphor for the house itself, that the books absolutely go to waste. Nips here giving up a star for Mario. Quite frankly, unfortunately, not quite at the level of reasoning and compassion is the bunny. He does have the ability for speech, but unfortunately does not possess the empathy required to work with Mario. So the only way to actually reason with him is through a tiny bit of coercion. Understandable. And Gainai, of course, having to back up the pillarless attempt here with a shining atop the pyramid. Commentator having a little bit of trouble. saksdal gets really angry at that Bob-omb for some reason. I guess maybe had a bad experience with the Bob-omb. Decides to throw it away and explode it immediately. Also backing up with atop the pyramid. And Gainai taking a death. Very, very unfortunate for Gainai. And that's going to really chip in to his lead. Now saksdal is almost dead even with Gainai. That's a lot of time to lose, and that's going to almost completely negate the time that saksdal lost saving and quitting. But Gainai going for a Tama Pillarless, and saksdal throwing away another bomb. Really has a vendetta against those Bob-ombs. Gainai going to be cleaning up this Pillarless, and now the two are almost dead even. He has to make that jump. He does manage to make this jump. saksdal might be a little bit behind. Obviously, having to back up with Talon loses a little more time. Now Gainai going to be going here into this Talon Star, and saksdal really needs to nail this Pillarless or he's going to fall more and more behind as the game goes on. He does manage to get a successful grab. Of course, there's not much to say about this pyramid that hasn't already been said. saksdal gets the successful Pillarless flip. The beauty of the pyramid, of course, there have been pyramids built for centuries and millennia. There's nothing really special about a pyramid being built in the 20th century, but the thing that's really special is the architecture inside. A lot of mummies stored inside the pyramids, but still they found space, even with all of the ancestors of their people. Being buried in the tombs, they found plenty of space in order to create interesting little mazes and secrets. Uh, just very playful choices from the architects here. Saxdal having a little trouble here on Lethal Lava Land and hitting a lot of lava. Can't hit any more. He is going to die. And trying to figure out the sliding puzzle. Now, Gainai and Saxdal both here in Lethal Lava Land. Lava Land, of course, a gorgeous monument to nature and how unforgiving it can be. And as we say that, Gainai takes a death on the crucial lava boost strategy. Did go for the long jump. Maybe if he'd done the triple jump, might have had a better chance of making it. But he's going to have an immediate mulligan. Going to take that long jump again and is going to make it this time, no problem. I'm going to triple jump up. These poles clearly were made to be scaled. Construction sites can be quite unsafe. Not sure if poles were the best way. Maybe they should have instituted some kind of scaffolding, but I understand that scaffolding in this particular environment probably has a tendency to melt and catch fire in the case of wood. So probably what happened was they were building scaffolding for construction and it kept burning down. And so instead they decided to create poles of extremely fire-resistant metal on top of rock. And a beautiful, beautiful work there. And speaking of rock that is resistant to fire, do check out our sponsor Onyx. Go to onyx.tv/speedrun and download Golf Clash to earn points toward a free subscription. Definitely, due to the independent support of viewers like you, we're able to bring more interesting geographical documentaries on the beach. Okay, a little bit of technical issues, but we are back here with you. Now, Gainai taking the elevator. These elevators are actually really well created. The rail system in Mushroom Kingdom is quite cool. Little beads, little nodes that guide the what are clearly levitating trains. You will see these multiple times in the course of the game. But certainly technology that we don't have access to, they can certainly conceptualize when we are playing Mario 64. Gainai going in here for these bully stars, and for all we know, these particular characters are just a little disgruntled. Maybe have been working construction on LLL for a very long time, and not in the best mood. Maybe the hours aren't very good. Of course, Bowser probably doesn't really care much about hour regulation or any kind of worker welfare. Bowser, of course, notorious for abolishing OSHA, while Gainai does get a very clean wing cap star here, picks up the rolling on hot logs, or whatever the heck that star is called. And Saxdal going to be going in here to pick up another bully star, while Gainai finishes up in Lethal Lava Land. And Saxdal only slightly behind him. That death certainly did not help things. Gainai headed here, going to be picking up chests in the current. Now, the main thing to note about these chests in Dire Docks is that obviously Dire Docks mostly is an ecological paradise or an ecological oasis of some sense in an otherwise extremely industrial castle. But the reason these chests are in the current is that they actually fell out of Bowser's submarine as he was boarding for his invasion into Princess Peach's castle. That's quite embarrassing, to be honest. Unfortunately, the engineers who designed Bowser's sub, they managed to make it airtight to the extent that the sub was able to function, but the outer hold actually had a puncture in it that when the water pressure rose and then fell, a lot of the chests came pouring out, and that allowed this power star to become exposed, and that's a clear structural leak in Bowser's scheme that is going to allow Mario to get back into the castle and possibly retake control. Saxdal re-entering on the left side into Dire Docks. Very interesting choice. And just to answer the question of why Saxdal is behind currently, there was a save and quit, but Gainai did suffer a death on Pillarless that evened things up, and then Saxdal had a death in the Lava Land that kind of brought things back in the other direction. Now Saxdal going to be going here for the back sub. Ooh, gets a bit of an issue with the jump there, but going to be picking it up again. Back sub, of course, pretty much free, not much that can go wrong. And speaking of free subs, if you would like to get a free subscription to the Speedrun channel, and you have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for absolutely free. Otherwise, you can also download Golf Clash through the Onyx app by going to onyx.tv/speedrun or typing !Onyx to get a link, customized link. Earn 500 points playing Golf Clash and get a free subscription. But now we are on to the real action here as Gainai enters into Bowser in the fire scene. More safety code violations here. Certainly not one who cares much for safety, is more concerned with impeding Mario's attempts to get back into him. And Gainai, misses the backflip, unfortunately, which is probably going to be the end of Lava Boost. We still have a very decent chance of hitting that early cycle. Does actually get the Lava Boost. And I guess that goes to show just how much time there is to save with the new movement at the beginning, where you backflip that first coin and then you start the elevator. It looks like pretty decent ending from Gainai. Not quite the good ending, but a pretty good ending still to boot. And Gainai going to be, Saxdal actually going to be getting this Lava Boost as well, and both of these players are on fantastic pace. Very well matched with each other. And Gainai actually makes a slight mistake. Emulates the architects in Mushroom Kingdom and makes basic mathematical errors in his calculations. His geometry was a little bit off and wound up throwing Bowser off the edge. Of course, Bowser not subject to gravity like the rest of the world. And Saxdal making the same mistake, but in the other direction. Statistically speaking, both of these players hit their throws. Now Saxdal going to be picking up this key, and Gainai going to be using his key. And we're going to be seeing Wet Dry World. Now, Wet Dry World was originally a reservoir, and sometimes still is, but of course there have been massive irrigation innovations to the Mushroom Kingdom since the time that feudalism was first implemented. And so the reservoir is only really filled up when there is real danger of a drought. And so typically speaking, you're going to be seeing this reservoir quite empty, and a little bit of water, kind of murky on the bottom, not necessarily the best for sanitation, but there is a filtration system outside of it. Gainai picking up these coins. And Saxdal going for the triple jump wall kick strategy, not one that we see quite so commonly here in Division 2, but certainly executed very well and going to save a lot of time. Gainai catching fire. And it's important to note that those would not be problems that would be faced if the reservoir were completely full. But unfortunately, there is no water to extinguish such fire, and so Gainai is going to be taking that burn. Saxdal, meanwhile, does happen to enter at a time where a slight drought is expected and the reservoir is filled up a little bit. But of course, that water is going to be rapidly used during the drought. We're probably not going to see it again. Gainai going to be cleaning up this 100 coin. He's going to get the 100 coin star with a little bit of labor. And Saxdal going to be re-entering here. And as you will be able to see, all of the water is completely gone. Definitely a good testament to the healthiness of the Mushroom Kingdom. The Toadstools clearly are very well hydrated. Stay Hydrated Bot would be very, very proud. A little bit of a backside burn on Saxdal. Gainai not opting for the triple jump wall kick, so Saxdal's going to be saving a little time over his opponent. But it's good to see the denizens of Mushroom Kingdom staying so well hydrated. Gainai getting head bonked a little bit and deciding to play it a little safe. Saxdal going to triple jump wall kick here. Gets a firstie. That's very unfortunate, but is going to be able to get back up here. Again, a bit of an architectural issue that there aren't many good ways to actually get up here without kicking off walls. Certainly not a functionally oriented structural construction decision. Even that ramp is very difficult to reach. And it seems like the people who designed Wet Dry World did not want people to be accessing the reservoir except when it was already full. Saxdal misses a coin, but it's okay. He has the 1 coin to miss. And Gainai going to be finishing here with Top of the Town. And Top of the Town is a really cool concept because the star is designed only to be accessible when the water level is high. That means that in times of a drought, it is important for the Toadstools, the rulers of the kingdom, to fill up the reservoir and make sure that the needs of their citizens are tended to, otherwise they won't be able to access the power stars. And it's basically creating a barrier where the rulers of the kingdom have to provide water to their citizens before they're able to access the treasure that is available in Wet Dry World. And I think that's a great form of accountability. Gainai going to be going here into Tiny Huge Island in the meanwhile. Tiny Huge Island, almost entirely natural. Just a lot of very beautifully shaped, clearly shaped by local climate and climate anomalies. Not much in the way of human construction, with the exception of inside the island. There's a local conspiracy theorist who kind of one of those people who believes that everyone's out to get him and he's being constantly monitored, who created basically a nuclear bunker inside the mountain. And he lives on netting, which is okay because he's a caterpillar. And he keeps a couple treasures inside that special bunker, very much safe from harm, with the exception of a tiny little accessway that we're not going to be seeing in this particular run. Gainai going here to the top of the island. And we're not going to be seeing that particular recluse, but there is plenty of wildlife here. A Chuckya, a couple Goombas. Most of them have allegiance to Bowser. And Saxdal gets the mountain clip. And Gainai going to be taking care of you know how sometimes you get weeds growing in your garden, you've got to uproot them. Similarly, gardening work constantly needs to be done in order to tend the landscape. There's not much in the way of man-made construction, but humans and humanoids are integral to the maintenance of the sustainability of the wildlife here in Tiny Huge Island. And that's what those pipe accessways are for. They're particularly for people to come in, take out those piranha plants that are messing with the wildlife. Gainai picking up a star from Toad. These Toads have stealth technology and are undetectable to Bowser's forces. That's how they're hiding while Mario retakes the castle. Tall Mountain, yet another example of how effective construction can be inside mountains. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see the inside of the mountain on this particular foray, but also a lot of naturally shaped ingresses and indents, as we just saw on the right side with Gainai, who just picked up a star that was expertly hidden behind a cascade. The Toadstools did not want Bowser to get through to that, and they did not see it. Saksdal barely getting that wall kick off of that log. The log, you're actually supposed to run along the log to pick it up, but fortunately Mario able to jump far enough that he doesn't need to do that at all. It is a particularly long strat. Gainai going to be scaling the mountain and picking up the star at the very top. This star, on the other hand, not very well hidden. Just a little bit of fencing to keep people out in a slightly prohibitive slope. Maybe your average Goomba would have trouble getting up there due to its inability to jump. But not very well concealed. And those clouds, clearly nefarious intent, but those clouds can float as high as they want, which means that the star not really well hidden to their eyes particularly. Gainai going to be going for the red coins and jumping just off to the right and going to be diving off. This was clearly an intentional architectural decision in order to make those red coins harder to access. Much more difficult to access. And of course, the problem is that Mario typically is very confident, as you see on Saksdal's end, that Mario is very confident in his acrobatic skills, much more so than the other side is. So typically these coins will be harder to access, and that'll make it easier for him to get to them before his enemies do. Unfortunately, every now and then, issues do come up. So Gainai mercifully going to clean up these red coins, but that is the point that Saksdal is actually taking the lead over his opponent, and just like that, the worlds have gotten in his way. So it looks like Saksdal is going to be blasting to the lonely mushroom now. This mushroom definitely was not designed to be accessible. But the question is, why would that box be put there if not to access that mushroom? And the answer is only Mario can take that box. Only Mario has the control and the orientation, the ability to orient himself toward that mushroom in such an efficient way, in such a precise way to access the star. Once again, the safety measures are non-stop. This not quite working out for Saksdal. There's a slight hole in the mountain wall, a naturally created hole. A lot of weather anomalies have caused you to be able to climb up onto that wall through a little slit, but it is very precise, and Saksdal not quite able to get it. It looks like Gainai did also have to take the breeze himself, and we're going to be heading into Snowman's Land. Snowman's Land is a pretty strong hybrid of human endeavor and nature itself. Of course, one of the wonders of Mushroom Kingdom is the greatest and biggest snowman ever built, and that's what you're seeing is the scaffolding that was laid in order to complete construction of the snowman. Is also what Mario uses to access the top of the snowman's head. Very strong movement from both players, getting there as fast as humanly possible. Now, Whirl from the Freezing Pond is a star that was meant to be accessed by jumping on the spin drifts, but the construction work did not actually reshape these natural landscapes of rock that exist in between Mario's spawn point and the box. And so Mario is able to use extremely advanced jumping mechanics in order to get over there. Now, I know what you are all wondering, which is, if the snowman was completed, why is the scaffolding still there? Of course, once the snowman was completed and activated, the snowman saw the construction workers and the architect as intruders, as Saksdal really struggles here getting into the deep freeze. Gainai having no such trouble is going to retake the lead. And so the snowman was very territorial and defensive, and so he blew all of the construction workers and the architect off of the scaffolding with one giant gust of wind. And after that, they were so scared that they ran away and never came back. That's why that scaffolding remains to this day. Gainai going to be finishing up here in Snowman's Land by pushing that bully off of his platform. of course, the red hot ice. This is blue ice that was imported from Hyrule, interestingly enough. Now, both players are done here in Snowman's Land, and they're going to be headed down into Hazy Maze Cave, which is a deep, deep, deep part of the basement. One of the few worlds that might actually be diegetic to the castle. It's not actually, the painting worlds themselves, they're portals that lead to other worlds. Whether they're encased in the painting or other worlds in and of themselves, that's up to debate. But the basement here, especially the non-painting portals, these are different parts of the castle. The Hazy Maze Cave is actually a part of the castle that has not yet been renovated or kind of landscaped. Now another toad here hidden in the basement. Mario very much with the wherewithal and the perception to notice that he's near. That perceptiveness not existent in Bowser's forces, much more brawny, much less strategic, and thus are not able to detect past Toad's stealth capabilities. So Gainai going to be finishing up here, of course, more scaffolding here. You only see that scaffolding in the earlier sections, in the red coins room, and also in this room. But the further and further you get into Hazy Maze Cave, the less human construction work you see, because it is very much nascent. It's very much underway. It has not been developed quite as much as the other areas of the castle. But that monster in the cavern start going quite swimmingly, no pun intended. Gainai going to be going here for a Christmas miracle, not so miraculous. And Gainai still trying to get past and not quite able to get that side flip, but saksdal getting the amazing emergency exit and once again taking back the lead clearly. Gainai having a lot of struggles. This can be a very difficult start to back up. Now, what Gainai is trying to do and struggling, admittedly, is he is trying to get over the lack of ceiling, to get over the wall, which is exactly what he has done. And that is another example of the lackluster construction that has gone into Hazy Maze Cave. A lot of budget cuts have caused construction here to falter. There are no ceilings in Hazy Maze Cave. If the appropriations committee of Mushroom Kingdom had been a little more willing to designate funds toward the construction of human industry in Hazy Maze Cave, or rather human infrastructure, chances are that the ceilings would have been built, but unfortunately they've had to abandon construction multiple times. That allows Mario to get over these walls and really abuse the lack of ceilings in the level. Of course, Mario, able to jump really long distances, not going to need to hang on the scaffolding. That would take a very long time, but would make for a very entertaining game of Jungle Chase. The rolling rocks, of course, going through that egress that was designed to flood the cave if ever they needed to. But unfortunately, they did not ever block up or barricade that. So the rocks are just kind of pouring in. There's nothing anyone seems to be willing to do about it. Bit of a safety hazard, but of course not a huge problem while taking a little damage there, because typically you don't see people come into the basement, into the deep, deep basement. And Gainai just continuing to take damage from these rocks, losing more and more time, but we're entering into the tip top of the castle, and this is where the run gets extremely exciting. Rainbow Ride, of course, known for saksdal. Okay, there we go. Known for visible spectrum anomalies that appear over its surface, of course, due to the immense amounts of rain that do plague the kingdom oftentimes. Good news for Wet Dry World, which oftentimes never finds itself in drought, but bad news generally for people who don't like colors. Now, Rainbow Ride is a skyport. It's where the cruiser itself docks. This is the cruiser belonging to Princess Peach and is a common target of Bowser, so what she has done is leave it all the way up above the castle and way out of reach of Bowser. And it seems to have worked as Gainai falls off and gets hit by Lakitu, and this is the real pitfall of Rainbow Ride, is it is very high above the castle. Almost any mistake will result in a death. Oh, and saksdal almost taking a death of his own, playing it very, very safe. Did get his Locky 2 bounce, which means that he is significantly ahead of his opponent. And Gainai really bringing to us the question, why is that ramp there if not with the intent of having whoever tried to access the cruiser brutally murder the Locky 2 in order to reach that ramp and shortcut up to the top. A mystery that will remain forever unsolved. And oh my goodness, and a subscription coming in from Blue Esports Rock Chalk. Just very much a big old shout out to Rock Chalk, one of our D1 players, supporting the stream as always. Can we get some fiery clocks for Rock Chalk? And an appropriate Franker Z as well. saksdal picking up those red coins. And Gainai jumping into Rainbow Ride. As is saksdal, who's a little bit ahead, going to be swinging in the breeze. And swinging in the breeze, of course, named after these pendulums that you use to get on to the platform. Swings up and picks it up. Gainai going through this red coins maze. Now this maze is beautifully constructed, just a work of art. Not designed to be accessible, but more kind of like one of those Minecraft waterfalls that you design, where the water goes in creative ways, designed to be admired from afar, not really accessed from within, but Mario defying the rules as they were intended to be. saksdal finding the final Toad Star, deciding not to wait and pick that up as soon as possible, but entering with time moving into Tick-Tock Clock. In the event that he takes a death, that's going to lose him a potential amount of time. But that is very unlikely to happen. You'd have to take about 3 deaths to lose time to that. Although actually he is losing time, because that's another time he's going to have to wait to re-enter the clock. Gainai finishing up swinging in the breeze, and saksdal finishes up hitting the pendulums. Now the reason that you want to enter into the clock with time still there is that it takes way less time to wait for time still when you're initially entering than it does after you've gotten a star, which means that you're losing about 4 seconds to the extra time stop star after already having grabbed another. Now Tick-Tock Clock, of course, is a huge mechanism. Very interesting. None of the cogs are actually connected to each other, so it leaves a curious question as to, like, kind of makes us question everything we thought we knew about how clocks work. But there seems to be an internal physics, an internal science mechanism that is at force beyond our sight and perception that allows all of these clocks to operate on a fairly consistent schedule. Gainai going to be going for this 100 coin here. Overall going pretty clean. The mid-game fairly free. As you can see, a lot of scaffolding, a lot of little blocks. None of them turning because time has stopped. It has been completely deactivated. And oh no, Gainai, beautiful kickback onto that platform. Usually players who try to improvise in the middle of that movement wind up falling, and that's exactly what Gainai does. Is he going to be able to be caught? He does get caught, but then falls again, and he's going to fall at the very end and die. And that is going to be an absolutely disastrous venture. And saksdal's going to take a commanding lead, who is now at 66 stars over Gainai's 62, and he has nothing to show for all of that gorgeous movement. And now saksdal is headed up here in Tick-Tock Clock, and he's ahead of his opponent in 100 coin, but with 4 extra stars to boot, which means that saksdal is in commanding lead. Certainly possible for Gainai to get points, but very unlikely he's going to win this game now. Of course, there are plenty of gimmicks and snags, like we just saw with saksdal with that invisible wall, that might cause him to lose further and further into his lead. Or rather, that might allow Gainai to chip into saksdal's lead. But we'll see those gimmicks, but Gainai taking another fall. This time, not going to die. It's going to be a little merciful for him. Now, it's important to note that the thwomp itself is the one part of Tick-Tock Clock. Oh no, Gainai falls again! This is absolutely tragic. And not able to get the triple jump back up. Gainai just falling right apart. And Gainai falls one more time. Hopefully he can pick it back up. He has 60 coins. Really wants to finish this 100 coin. And a big win for the USA, as Germany's chances of winning this match are looking very grim. And saksdal is going to enter for the last star of TikTok Clock, and it is looking real good for him. Of course, stop time for red coins is one of the few stars where they actually go by the intent of the architects. Very difficult, though not impossible, to pick up that star using moving time pendulums. Now Gainai going to be going up to the stomp on the thwomp. The thwomp, the only part of TikTok Clock that is not, along with the amps of course, that is not subject to time-stopped movement, because he is not actually a part of TikTok Clock's machinery, internal machinery or engineering. He is indeed a separate figure that was placed in the level to stand guard over the stars. saksdal almost taking a fall, but barely not doing it. Oh no! And that pathway was designed to keep intruders off balance, and that's exactly what's happening. Just extremely beautiful defense turrets put in place by Bowser. Certainly more effective than a giant immobile box that just preceded it. And Gainai just making his way through TikTok Clock, and saksdal is gonna be going here for a pretty safe cycle. Let's see if he goes for the triple jump wall kick. Once again, Bowser, not really accounting for height, was perfectly aware that Mario was able to jump, but did not realize that Mario could do a double or even triple jump. Of course, in the previous 2D worlds in which he had faced Mario, Mario only had one jump in his repertoire, and thus underestimating Mario's ability to gain massive levels of altitude now that he is in 3 dimensions. And that ultimately is going to allow Mario to access Bowser's lair in record time. Now Gainai is re-entering here into TikTok Clock, trying to finish up, definitely has time to get some points, but saksdal already here makes one throw, will be going for another throw here. Chat wondering what the inspiration for the level design was. saksdal clean throws, not missing a single one. He's going to finish up with a mid 5140. Just gorgeous play from saksdal. Congratulations to him. A lot of these courses were in fact inspired by Legends of the Hidden Temple. And Gainai gonna slowly make it his way toward finishing up here. And he can get a lot of points here, so he should not give up. Now, saksdal was ahead of Gainai going into this race. saksdal has had a very good season so far. Of course, this does mean that saksdal is going to be maintaining his lead with that win. Gainai rolling into the cage, and he has one more star to go. He did do TTC 69 and is going to be going for that Toad Star last. And it should be pretty clear right now that the scaffolding here in TTC was not designed to be accessible by people. But finally, Gainai going to be cleaning up those red coins. Mario certainly no ordinary human. And finally, Gainai picking up that 70th star, and he's going to be able to get into that door. Now, Mario doesn't necessarily need 70 stars to enter the door. He needs 70 stars to get up the staircase, but there are ways to cheat your way past that staircase. But Mario, in the context of this particular run, is a man of honor and really wants to demonstrate that he has a mandate to retake the castle by having all 70 power stars. And it's kind of a show of force to demonstrate to the people of the kingdom that he is fit to take the castle and restore power to the Toadstools. Now Gainai going to be making his way up this ramp. Ordinarily, you're supposed to press a switch and jump up the steps, but once again, Bowser not accounting for the triple jump capabilities that Mario has developed since the last time he faced Bowser, which means he doesn't even need that switch in order to get up here. And Gainai not able to make the triple jump wall kick, hitting us up with a bit of a save. And now his chances of getting any points are getting particularly grim. Very, very slim chances right now. Not all that slim, but he is about 3 minutes behind. He has only 2 more minutes, which means he has to nail his wall kicks now. Does not get them moving, but do the slow setup and manages to get up there. So he is still alive to earn a couple of points here. He's going to play nice and safe backflip up there. A lot of moves in Mario repertoire that Bowser did not account for, of course, in the previous encounters he had with him. Most of Mario's functionality was relegated to running and jumping, and maybe a little bit of superhuman timing. But combine that timing with this new move list repertoire, this new skill set, as Gainai unfortunately misses a throw there. But yeah, you combine that timing with this new move set, and Bowser really did not know what he was getting into when he invaded the castle. Gainai missing another throw, and this is getting really scary. Finally nails a throw. He has about 1 minute and 15 seconds left to earn points, and that's 1 point for every 10 seconds he saves of that minute and 10 seconds he has left. Unfortunately, Bowser does a little dance after the second throw, not quite paying attention to his opponent, gets a little bit tilted, Bowser doing a rage pause of his own, and that causes him to get grabbed and thrown for the final throw, and he is going to teleport away and give back control of the castle by relinquishing the ultimate power star. And Gainai is going to finish up here 4 minutes and 15 seconds behind his opponent. That means he is going to lock in about 7 points, certainly a strong showing relative to what he was dealt here at the end of Bowser in the Sky. Gainai could have done much worse. He could have gotten no points. Now that's going to do it. We do have one more match left in this week's matches, but that's going to be happening next week. Thank you all for tuning in. I am Shantastic93. This is the Global Speedrun 70 Star League. We'll be bringing you J-Mill versus Cartoon Buffoon next week, and then we'll be getting right back into the next matches. But stay tuned tomorrow. We've got more action in store for you. That is 70 Star Division 1. So we're going to be having people like Ouija and Cheese and Punkation and D Whatever, world record holders and legends playing. Do stay tuned starting at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Until then, I'm Shantastic. Have a great night and have a wonderful evening.